Before we get into this, I just want to make it clear that I think Samoa Joe is top-tier talent and is now on my list of WWE guys that should have been the world champion but weren't. He joins Ted DiBiase, Roddy Piper, Owen Hart, Matt Hardy, and a bunch more. Sadly, he has now departed from World Wrestling Entertainment, and although I am excited about what's next for him, we can look back over his run and remember a few choice happenings that the promotion would like us to forget. And to that end, I am Simon from What Culture. Please do subscribe. This is 10 things WWE wants you to forget about Samoa Joe. Number 10, he wasn't meant to make it to the main roster. That's right. Even though he had moments where he felt like the biggest deal imaginable on Raw or SmackDown, when Samoa Joe was first signed, the main roster was never in the plans. He was there to be an NXT lifer. As Joe himself has explained over the years, one of the very first things said to him during a meeting with Triple H was that Vince McMahon wouldn't be interested in having him on Monday or Friday nights. There are a bunch of excuses, such as the fact Samoa Joe was in his late 30s, although fair play to the game. At least he was being brutally honest. It's how it should be. Joe would prove all of this wrong because he made such a mark in NXT that WWE would have been mad to ignore it, and I bet they're glad they didn't. His first ever t-shirt became one of WWE Shop's biggest sellers. To catch you up though, yes, Joe debuted in NXT March 2015 at 36 years of age, and 2 years later, he was choking the life out of Seth Rollins on the main roster. And how did fans react to this too? They could not have been more excited because Samoa Joe is great. Number 9, at first he worked for other promotions. The Samoa Joe deal was just so weird for WWE. As the Forbidden Door is blown off its hinges in 2021, the Samoan submission machine was well ahead of the game 6 years prior. Even though he had signed a deal with WWE or NXT, they had no problem with him taking bookings elsewhere. It was like the most anti-Vince McMahon line of thinking ever. So after he said hello at TakeOver Unstoppable, Joe worked for House of Glory, the XWA, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling, Impact, the Prairie Wrestling Alliance, All American Wrestling, Preston City Wrestling, and even challenged Jay Briscoe for the Ring of Honor World title. It took until August until somebody realized what they were doing was nuts, and if you fast forward to April of the following year, Samoa Joe was the NXT champion. I don't want to make a thing about this, but it's because Samoa Joe is great. Number 8, his final appearance was in the rain in a poncho. Look, I get it. WWE is a company and they can hire and fire whoever the hell they want. It's just the nature of the beast. But it still seems a bit rich that the last image of Samoa Joe was at WrestleMania 37, where he was commentating in a flipping poncho as it rained down. He could not have given more of himself to that role. It's a shame, as if he was gonna go, the final explosion should have been some badass match, especially as Joe had proven himself no matter what the job was. He even made a children's story sound terrifying when he was feuding with AJ Styles. Some have said this almost summed up his run in the promotion in the sense while he was always great, WWE never really knew what they had. I think there's some truth to that, and as said during the intro, he should have been the WWE champion at least once. Who is more believable than him? Sadly, it meant he left the organization literally soaking wet, but you know what? It's okay, because Samoa Joe is great. And I know I'm annoying me too. Number 7, he was turned down once due to his physique. There's this weird idea in wrestling that unless you're below 10% body fat, you can't be in shape. Flub that. Samoa Joe is the perfect example, as we've seen him run rings around guys who are shredded. It was his look that made him so unique, you believed he could kill you. Once again, Samoa Joe has talked about this himself and how at certain points throughout his career, he was told by Jim Ross that he was not the sort of talent the company was looking for. And if you want a more blunt take on that, let's go to Bruce Pritchard and his Something to Wrestle With podcast. Talking about Joe getting hired, or not so, Pritchard said it didn't happen because they, whoever they are, thought he was a fat Samoan. To clarify, he went on to say it wasn't the type of body that Vince McMahon liked. It didn't matter as Joe went and proved himself everywhere else before making the journey to Titan Towers, but come on, it's wrestling. All shapes and sizes are welcome. Number 6, his outside success. This is just par for the course when you sign for WWE, but it is somewhat disappointing. When you have a new guy you're going to introduce to your audience and he has this body of work that would get him over in one video package, and you choose to ignore it, well, that's a shame. Every now and then they will break ranks, such as JBL mentioning how AJ Styles was a former IWGP Heavyweight Champion when he debuted at the Royal Rumble. But as far as WWE was concerned, they'd have been happy for their fans to assume that Samoa Joe was just hidden under a rug for 15 years until they decided to let him loose. If we had decided to go in the other direction, we could have mentioned that Joe had won multiple world titles, helped put Ring of Honor on the map, was imperative to TNA, picked up numerous Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Wrestling Observer awards, and had had 5-star matches with Kurt Angle, CM Punk, Nigel McGuinness, Kenta Kobashi, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, and so many others. I doubt it would have hurt WWE's bottom line to admit there's a world outside of their walls, and it also would have given Samoa Joe a massive celebration on arrival. Number 5, he was the Samoan the fans wanted. I don't want to get into all the Roman Reigns nonsense. It was what it was, there's good bits and bad, but hey, it happened, so we can't pretend it didn't. And as we know now, our tribal chief is the flippin' man. However, if we go back to the Survivor Series 2012, a Samoan named Joe debuted on the main roster, and it was not Samoa Joe. It was, of course, Joe Anoa'i, aka Roman Reigns, aka the head of the table, aka WWE's pet project. As soon as the Shield were done, the audience felt that Roman was being shoved down their throats, so they booed him whenever they could. And this became really problematic when other wrestlers were put in the firing line. For example, when Reigns took on Samoa Joe at Backlash 2018, the crowd was so annoyed when they saw how it was going, they started to walk out. Nobody wanted to see the big dog rack up another win, and they were desperate for Joe to get something. When it became clear that wasn't the plan, they were out. That really does suck, because back in the day a reaction like this would have hurled Samoa Joe to the top, but as that wasn't the plan, we weren't allowed any new toys. Number 4, the wellness policy violation. He's not alone when it comes to these, but yes, on the 25th of February 2020, WWE announced that Samoa Joe would be suspended for 30 days for violating the wellness policy. As ever, they would like you to forget about every single one of these. It always leaves us guessing, as we rarely found out what a talent has taken to cause this, and at the time, Joe was in the midst of a battle against Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy, and the AOP with Kevin Owens by his side. What really stung is that he missed WrestleMania 36 due to this, and also never competed in a WWE ring again. When he returned, he was on commentary, and as we now know, was released just over 1 year later. Number 3, he should have beaten Brock Lesnar. Just go and watch any of Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar's pre-match interactions or promos. Not only were they money, but the fire they brought out of each other rocked. Can you imagine, even if just for a month, WWE had allowed Joe to beat Brock? The reaction alone would have been worth it. Once again, it didn't happen because of how WWE saw Joe and what the plan was, hence why Lesnar won the Universal title at WrestleMania 33 and held on to it until SummerSlam 2018. Only then was it time to him to lose it, and it was of course to the chosen one, Roman Reigns. Please see entry number 5. Still, in July 2017 and the stupid Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, Joe stepped up to challenge Brock, and it was great. The build was so good, no one gave two hoots about the event name anymore when it came around, and Joe was excellent at hanging with Lesnar because he came across as his equal. Brock knew this too, he sold his ass off for him. They also kicked the crap out of each other on the show, and the momentum would tell you that everyone and their grandma wanted Joe to win. You could smell it. It didn't happen, although they still had a terrific match, so much so that Samoa Joe stayed in the title picture when we got to SummerSlam the next month. The Beast walked away from that one with the gold once more, but this is one of those what-if moments. The sheer lines Joe threw towards Lesnar on the mic before they clashed, you couldn't have asked for any more. Number 2, he's pals with CM Punk. If you were a wrestling fan in the 2000s, there were a few names who weren't associated with WWE that you'd hear about all the time. Amazing Red, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Samoa Joe. They were all putting on great match after great match, and thanks to this became some of the hottest wrestlers on the planet. When it came to Punk and Joe too, they were doing this by kicking each other's ass, and through that, a very real friendship was formed. If you've never witnessed this, go and find the trilogy that played out in Ring of Honor in 2004 and prepare to be in awe, and because of it, they have remained pals to this very day. Given that some say Punk just vanished on them when he was done with wrestling, kind of underlines how close they must be. This came spilling out publicly again when Samoa Joe was let go from WWE and had a back and forth with Punk on Twitter, so naturally, because we're all bonkers fans, we now hope that somehow, somewhere, we will see them lock horns again. And don't get me wrong, I'd love that too, but there's also something pleasant knowing this relationship has survived throughout the years. Given that Punk isn't WWE's favourite person though, they likely want you to forget it. Number 1, that he's a damn big deal. I say they want you to forget, but maybe it's actually WWE that has forgotten themselves. Just go and look at the reaction on social media when Samoa Joe's name was among those who'd been told they could leave. It was sheer disbelief because most see Joe as a main event player and a damn big deal. If he were to go to AEW, New Japan, Impact, or Ring of Honor, people would tune in. Even if it was just curiosity, he brings that kind of momentum, and then the real question comes to his health. There's a reason WWE kept him on commentary for so long, but if he does get cleared and he can wrestle, Come on. There is a main eventer who is literally a free agent. Maybe it's because of this WWE would try and downplay his status, but it will not work. Samoa Joe's stock has already increased because of his firing, and only a few individuals can ever say that. So if you are a wrestling promoter, please book him. This bald idiot will 100% watch. Know of any other things that WWE wants us to forget about Samoa Joe? Make sure you let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this. Make sure you give us a follow on social media and click another video around my head so you can watch another video on the channel. My name is Siren from What Culture. I appreciate you stopping by, and I'll talk to you again on the next one.